Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this session today on the automation of talent. I think we probably all agree that talent acquisition is a key driver of success. Many of you are leading companies, many of you are setting up companies or thinking about investing in companies, and the team always comes into play. And I think, especially after the pandemic, we have all been hearing about the Great Resignation, flexible work, remote work, this idea that location now is limitless, all the technological advances that are putting a lot of pressure in companies on this idea of upskilling and reskilling. So anything you hear, anything you read about companies is hiring top talent is always one of the main priorities for companies nowadays. So today, here with me, we have two very successful companies that from different approaches are trying to tackle this idea of acquiring and hiring the best talent for companies. So to my right, Eric Stettler, he is the chief economist at TopTal. And TopTal, some of you might know, is a talent marketplace that connects businesses with top freelancers in several fields, including software development, finance, design, project, and product management. And it's a company that nowadays only accepts 3% of the total applications they receive. So talking about hiring top talent. And to my left, Jordi Romero, founder and CEO at Factorial. Factorial is a human resources software company that provides a wide range of tools and solutions to streamline and automate HR processes for businesses. And their aim is to simplify HR operations and to enhance employee experience. So they allow businesses and especially HR departments to focus on what's important, which is those strategic initiatives that they need to put in place to actually retain talent. As for myself, I'm Marurta de Mendoza. I'm the VP for Global Recruitment and Marketing at a university. I'm at the beginning of the road, attracting candidates to our programs. So hopefully when they go through our programs, they join the labor market and become those top talent that these companies are trying to recruit. So thank you, Eric. Thank you, Jordi, for joining us, and thank you to our audience as well. Then let me start the conversation with you, Eric. Your company has over 1,000 employees working remotely, and it has been very successful in helping companies reaching the best freelancers all around the world. So as I was mentioning at the beginning, only 3% make it through your process. So can you tell us a little bit more how TopTal is going about this idea of attraction and screening and retention, and how would you say you differentiate from your competitors?
Sure. So thank you very much for having me, of course. And I would say that what we do that really attracts the best talent in the world is that we are one of the few organizations, possibly the only, that says to them, it doesn't matter where you are at all. It doesn't matter what the circumstances of your birth. It doesn't matter where you went to school. If you are willing to put in the work and to have a lifetime journey of learning, you can join this global network, work with the best clients in the world, compete with the top innovation hubs in the world, and we will work with you along the way to do that. And so I would say that's the messaging in terms of how we attract them. And then, as you said, your role as a university is to ensure that they learn to learn. Our role is to then ensure that they never stop learning over the course of their professional life, because we've, of course, seen all the advances that are happening in AI and other technologies now. And whenever I speak to students at universities, I always say, look, you've got 50 years in front of you in terms of your professional life. If AI is where it is today with the speed at which it's advancing, think where it's going to be during your professional lifetime. And the only way to counter that is, of course, to always be learning and using that as an opportunity. In terms of how we then screen them and work with them, however, I would say that we absolutely use analytics in many respects, and we receive a great deal of information over the natural course of sourcing the talent and working with them. But we're very careful to marry that with the best of human judgment and human, basically just keeping the human factor in at every step of the way. So I want to be careful about the word automation, even though I know it's in the title of this panel. I am a data scientist. Human plus algorithms or human plus analytics beats analytics alone in nearly every task, especially complex ones. So we are careful to have that human element all throughout the process. And as a member of the Talent Network, in addition to the chief economist, I can attest to that in many respects.
Thank you, and thank you for mentioning the human touch in this whole automation. Cannot agree more. Jordi, in terms of Factorial, you position yourself, as I was mentioning at the beginning, as something much more than just an HR software company, in the sense that by automating all these very tedious processes that HR departments have to go through, you actually free up time for them to focus on what's important, which is actually the people and retain the people. So how do you leverage on technology and automation to streamline all those recruitment processes? And are there any innovative approaches or tools that you have implemented during these years to attract and assess the top talent in an efficient manner?
Yeah, thank you, Mara. I think it's natural to be afraid of automation, and I know that it's a scary word, but technological advancement, I think, is key to our ability to be able to create more value, to be happier, to live longer, and do things that matter more, achieve each other's purpose. So what we focus on is basically find things that are boring, that they don't add value, that they can be automated, and we try to find something else for that person to do. So the key for a right balance, in my opinion, is from Factorial, automate processes, and then immediately, at the same time, provide information, data, insights, so that the person that just freed up a bunch of their time can start learning about their organization. If it's an HR professional, it's the whole team. If it's a team manager or a team lead, then they can start thinking about how to hire better, how to coach or develop better their existing team, how to implement good practices, and free up time from admin, bureaucratic tasks to more creative and fun initiatives. So that's very important. Luckily for us, there is still so much stuff that we waste time on. There are a lot of bureaucracy and paperwork that organizations do. It's a bit incredible if you think about it. In your private life, we all have smartphones, we do video calls, we buy things in a minute from sitting somewhere in the street, and it arrives home before we do. But then we go to the office and we're required to fill in some papers, and then there is a box where you're supposed to put that paper. That doesn't make any sense. The level of digitization from our private life and the level of digitization from organizations, especially small and mid-sized organizations, doesn't make any sense. So we're trying to bring that level of automation and digitization to small and mid-sized organizations around the world.
Okay, thank you, because that leads me into my next question. For Eric, because I always think how much is too much automation. So we were discussing yesterday with Eric that he was mentioning that one of the big mistakes that companies make with these new technologies and innovation is that they just put the technology sort of like as a layer, and in an attempt to solve some problems, but leaving the existing practices in the same way, and without rethinking how this technology could help me do things differently, not only from a technological perspective. Actually, I was looking into some data the other day, and according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, right now 1 in 3 Americans is now earning freelance income, so you guys are going to have tons of work. So I was thinking, in this era of the gig economy, how would you say TopTal is supporting more traditional companies to actually tap into this talent pool of freelancers? Maybe those that, in the past would never think about this.
Yeah, companies increasingly are viewing freelance as on the same level as traditional employment in terms of the scale and sophistication with which they can use it. And I sometimes, for example, speak to our clients, and they tell me that they don't even realize sometimes which of their people are from us and which are the traditional full-time employees, which is simultaneously wonderful and devastating to hear for me, because that means that when they do their great work, the client's not always aware that it's our people who are doing it. But basically the idea is that they are realizing that every company, I think we can all agree, any company that stands still today is going to be drifting backwards. You have to be constantly innovating at the edge in terms of fostering optionality on new markets, new products, new technologies. And what I think I am seeing more and more companies recognize is the freelance economy allows you to foster that optionality in a way that wasn't possible before, because you can instantly build teams across different dimensions in terms of geography, technologies, professions. For example, if you're a biotech company, maybe bringing in a physicist for the next key brainstorming session, things like that, that help to push the frontier of what is possible with your company. And one thing that I'm very gratified to see is that several studies on executives on the use of freelance talent have said we don't use it to replace full-time at all. What we do use it for is to explore those new opportunities, and then we scale those up when we receive the technological market validations and everything that goes with that. In other words, it actually contributes to employment growth in the company rather than in any way being opposed to the traditional employment model. So I think there's a wonderful equilibrium, dynamic equilibrium in that respect. And so I would say that the pandemic accelerated it, not to be confused with caused it, but it did accelerate this trend just by showing the manner of risk and change that companies are facing these days. But what we are seeing now is it is increasingly at the same level in terms of the scale and sophistication with which companies use it versus the traditional way.
Thank you, thank you. And Jordi, we were talking before as well on from your company. You're also looking into how you support companies into this digital transformation process that goes beyond just the software that you provide to them and help them rethink the way that they do things. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and give us maybe some examples?
Yeah, it's I think it's an almost philosophical dilemma that we call ourselves a software company. You introduced us as a software company, and we do sell software. So software is great, but software is just a means to an end. And we were discussing this example of a new functionality we're building, where we're helping our customers understand the compensation of an employee. And in that visualization, there was a graphic that focused on base compensation, right? And there is many people who have a base and a variable compensation. And we thought that's an amazing opportunity for us, even if we're only a software, to put on the hat of an educator and help the employees of this organization, even the managers of these organizations that use us, that the total compensation is what matters and that there is different components. So we're actually trying to evangelize, what it means to have a compensation. How do you get to achieve that? What's the career path? What is necessary to get there? And of course, we're not our customers, so we cannot get too much inside their businesses, but we can give subtle hints here and there, not just to the employee, but to the decision makers, the HR, the leadership of our customers, so that progressively we help them accelerate and advance the way they do management. I remember, so I'm a computer engineer, and we were talking about how never did an MBA or anything like that. So one of the first things I did to try to understand how management works was reading books about management, and I was horrified because these books are like at best from the 20th century, and I was like, I just don't believe that's how the world works or how it should work. Hopefully, so we build software, but actually we're trying to build a book on management, on 21st century management. We just don't expect anybody to read a book anymore. We expect people to use the software and progressively learn how they can manage their organization better.
This idea of learning by doing, and actually, it's true that one thing is the data visualization. You have all this data, and then how you visualize it can change completely the conversation. So it's interesting to see how you are actually helping companies into having these conversations in terms of compensation with the employees. And he also gave me an idea to have those conversations with my team. I have to bring this topic as well, especially in this era of AI in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, Eric, in your company, you have a talent matching algorithm to connect clients with the right freelancers. How do you prioritize, if at all, diversity and inclusion within this talent network? How do you tackle this issue, if at all?
Yeah, so I'll reiterate that we're absolutely very data-driven, and we receive a great deal of analytics through the natural course of our sourcing and deploying of talent. That being said, there is always the human element at every step of the way, and the professional full-time matchers in our network get to know the talent very well, and it is not just a question of leaving it to an algorithm. I will also say that TopTal was born precisely to level the playing field on who can work in technology. That's why we're completely remote. That's why we're the world's largest entirely remote organization. That's why so many of our team members and talent members are in places that you might not expect, especially the global south. It was born when the CEO was here in Europe and was inspired by the great talent he saw here to begin matching them with clients in the United States. I'm from New York. I split my time with Colombia. and I have done that for 10 years, and every day I see the effects of basically what can happen if you are born on one part of this planet that simply doesn't have the same kind of domestic opportunities as what we tend to enjoy here in Western Europe and the United States. So we were born to do this. Our mission is precisely to make it such that anyone, no matter where you're from, all of those factors that previously would hold you back, that those become irrelevant to you simply becoming a great independent professional in technology. I will say, however, we also are, if you look at our leadership page, many of the top executives in the company are women. We're a proud sponsor of the Women in Tech Lounge at Web Summit last year and this year as well. We have many programs in terms of internal mentoring, community development for the talent network. So it's not that we just rest on our laurels saying, well, we were born to level the playing field, so we don't have to worry about this at all. We're very proactive in that respect, but it was well before this became something of a, I don't want to say buzzword in the negative sense, but before it got to the prominence in conversation that it did today, we were born precisely with that mission to make the tech sector completely available to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. He was actually telling me yesterday, and he's totally true, totally right, that we also need to give an opportunity to educate more the diversity in some of the programs, because we're still seeing that there are some sectors where we don't see, at least, that many women, for example. Jordi, on this same topic on biases, and we know that there could be biases in HR practices that can hinder diversity and inclusion. And how do you think automation/AI, because now we're talking a lot about AI, can assist in ensuring a fair process and biased process? And what do you think are the pros or the cons, if you're seeing any?
Yeah. So to contradict myself, there is one of the areas where we should be concerned. We should always look to implement technology to further society, but there is stuff that is dangerous. For example, if we automate too much prioritization of CVs, for example, in the case of talent acquisition, or if we try to replicate the status quo when we try to automate performance evaluation, productivity and success of employees with historical data, we incur the risk of staying in status quo we don't like. So there are ways to leverage new technology. For example, with the whole new wave of AI tools, summarization is something that technology is suddenly very good at. So let's save people time by summarizing a lot of information into key data points, but let's still rely on humans on making the final decision. If we try to automate so much, we can actually get stuck in a previous state where we're not advancing in a way that we think we should be moving, because technology doesn't care. Technology is it's brutally efficient and sometimes in a bad way. So actually at Factorial we're experimenting a lot with ways to leverage AI, especially the new large language models and transformers and all of these technologies that came up in the last few months. But we're also very careful to make sure that we're not damaging our customers, the employees of their customers, or society at a larger scale. There was a very large HR software provider that focuses on the enterprise. I'm not going to mention them, but they got sued recently because they were actually filtering candidates in recruitment processes, and obviously that was damaging a lot the diversity of the clients of this platform. And of course, it's the technology, it's not them, but you have to be responsible for the technology you put in the wild.
Yeah. I said I was not going to say it, but I'm going to say it, and I'm quoting someone when I asked this question. They say, when you have data, garbage in, garbage out. So you have to be very careful. Now, moving into the last part of the conversation on the future of work, there are a lot of conversations right now that the way that we work is going to change. So we are not going to have any more roles and positions. We're going to be organized by projects and skills. And so, if this is true, companies are going to have to do a lot of work, and you guys are going to have a lot of work too. So how does TopTal, Eric, adapt to these emerging trends and changes in the skill requirements, and how does your company stay agile and responsive to these evolving needs of the clients? Because this is changing at a very high pace, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when when clients come to us, they indicate which skills they're looking for, which then provides us a rich source of information in terms of what types of companies and organizations are requesting what skills across what geographies, across what sectors, things like that. And so that does allow a very fascinating look at basically where do companies see the frontier going, both large and small in terms of technology. And we use predictive analytics on that as well to marry that to the larger economic trends that we're seeing. And likewise, when companies begin working with us, they receive designated relationship managers and other executives who work with them throughout the entire process. And of course, through the natural course of that, we get insights into the kinds as their needs evolve and the things that basically we should be more ready for the next time when similar companies come to us. So I would say that we are very fortunate to have something of a first look in that respect in terms of what's coming down the tracks, in terms of what companies are thinking about, in terms of their next bets that they're going to make in terms of new technologies and markets. And then it's, as I said, we are constantly then testing hypotheses in terms of what does this mean for us? If we're seeing certain types of skills requested together, for example. So if companies are requesting blockchain along with artificial intelligence all of a sudden, if the same projects are always requesting those two, that itself is interesting information as well. So I would say also finally, if you look at our Slack channels, I mean, we have a Slack channel dedicated to every possible technology you can probably imagine. And so we have ongoing debates and discussions within the talent network and the core team in terms of what we see happening based on our work, both with our own clients and just overall in the world. And so I would say that is that is what we do. It is our job to be absolutely on the forefront of that.
Okay, thank you. We are running out of time, so maybe Jordi, on the last few words, maybe a word of advice on this changing landscape and flexible work and remote work and all these ideas of how the setting is changing so much. Any last word of advice maybe for some people that are rethinking how they can work in their companies or how they can set up their companies to be successful?
Yeah, I think in one word, it would be culture. I think culture is the most powerful weapon of any organization. It's usually the easiest thing you can build a distinct version of it, and it's the main job of leadership to understand the culture of your organization, the culture of the founding leadership team, and then make sure that this culture is properly communicated. If you have technology and automation to get rid of bureaucracy and admin, then anytime you free up, you should spend it furthering your culture and making sure that it's crystal clear, making examples out of it, and making sure that it is your weapon, that it is the secret to your success. So definitely recommend everybody thinking deep and hard about what their culture is and how to leverage it.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you so much, Jordi. And thank you so much to our audience today.